Sometimes, the worst jerks in the bunch need a little helping hand toward learning their lesson. That's where Karma comes in. This video is full of real life stories of Karens and other characters getting what's coming to them, all culminating with a call center employee getting the perfect chance to not only humiliate a disrespectful little snot, but his rude dad too. I worked at a telecom in Canada. This lady comes in with a broken iPhone, demanding to get a new one for free. She went to incredible lengths to get her way. She called up our loyalty team in store and spent the next 2 hours screaming at them. Finally, they agreed to a deal, and she's getting it for $0. Before I go on to ask her if she wants to buy a protection plan, she looks at me and goes, "I do not want a case, and AppleCare is a scam." Now, we work on commission, so this essentially meant I was getting nothing and ruining my numbers. She then keeps telling me to hurry up through the setup, since I was trying to get her out of the store with everything transferred over and set up. She grabs the phone and starts marching off, saying I was a terrible employee. She gets 3 steps out of the store and drops the phone. Shattered screen, phone can't even turn on now. She ran back in, asking what I could do for her. I shrugged and went, "Sorry, but AppleCare sure would have helped, eh?" Now, I don't normally go for AppleCare, but in her case, it probably would have been a good idea. If you broke one phone, there's chances are you're gonna break another. And I love that little bit of Canadian politeness at the end. It kind of makes it sting even harder. I would have loved to have seen the look on her face. I worked at a restaurant that was very popular for brunch, and Mother's Day was probably our busiest day of the year. I had a customer call the evening before and ask for a table for 6. He was incredibly rude when I informed him that this would simply be impossible. He kept getting more and more worked up, asking to speak to my manager. At first, I didn't want to pass the phone over. My manager, Mac, wasn't the nicest guy, and we were in the middle of a busy dinner shift. But Mac came up behind me and demanded to know why I had been on the phone for so long. I was like, screw it, this customer isn't gonna listen to me anyway, and gave the phone to Mac. Mac asked how he could help and listened for about 15 seconds before telling this dude something like, "So you're tying up my hostess in the middle of dinner even though she's already told you nicely that we can't fit you and your family on the night before the busiest day of the year. Screw you, buddy," and then hung up the phone. Alright, I really like this Mac guy. Seems like a great manager. You know that saying, the customer is always right? Well, I think Mac disagrees with that. That customer might never come back, but good riddance, I say. He probably wouldn't tip well anyways. When I worked in a diner, there was this mother and preteen daughter who came in every Sunday after church like clockwork. I've never seen a more spoiled kid in my life. Her mom would order her a small drink and the kid would say, "Get me a large drink or I'll hit you in the face." Seriously, and the mom would just say, "Oh, okay." If the kid didn't like her food, she would throw it at me. Rather than do anything, the mom would just play victim like, "Aw, what can I do?" Then, of course, she'd leave me with less than a 5% tip. One Sunday, something was different. They came in with a whole group of people, like 9 adults, and of course, the little brat. I took their drink order, then brought all their drinks out on a tray. Now, if you have ever had drinks on a tray, you know it's about balance. I was down to the last 2 drinks when the brat grabbed one of them. Doing so completely unbalanced the tray, so she managed to dump the entire contents of a large Diet Coke right on top of her head. She started sobbing immediately. Isn't it just the worst when parents don't take responsibility for the kids? Yeah, I get kids act out once in a while, but you have to do something about it. You can't just say, "Oh well." But I'm glad karma eventually kicked in, and it was probably worth the wait to see the look on the kid's face after an entire thing of Diet Coke landed on her head. Maybe the next time the mom will try to control her kid. I worked in a fancy clothing store in this rich seaside town. It was a hectic Saturday when this very pretentious looking girl walked in with her boyfriend. She ignored us when we said hello and even gave my colleague a demeaning look. She went on to browse around in the store, eventually taking some clothes with her in the changing booth. After a while, I heard a commotion coming from the back. Her and her boyfriend seemed to be having a heated conversation. I see the boyfriend running back and forth between the booth and some clothing racks. Meanwhile, my colleague and I were being constantly chased away by her. She refused any help and also refused to leave the booth. So me and my colleague continue working and helping other customers. I was working the register when suddenly the girl turns up next to me, completely teed off. And she starts ranting about how our store really should work on the fitting of our clothes and how everything we sold was trash. I was completely caught off guard, but I soon figured out what was wrong. Right when I wanted to ask her what the exact problem was, I saw my colleague looking at the girl while bursting out this horribly loud laugh, tears literally pouring down her face. What had happened was that the girl had taken a piece of clothing that she thought was a strapless dress. Well, it wasn't a dress, it was a skirt. The girl had tried on all sizes in this dress, and got completely fed up, and now she was yelling at us and her boyfriend. Yep, she left the dressing room in a skirt pulled up to her chest, making a scene. After she left, I laughed until I cried. Not gonna lie, I've definitely tried clothes on the wrong way before, but at least I had the sense to realize I was making a mistake, and I've never run up to an employee to complain and embarrass myself. She absolutely got what she deserved. I used to be the night manager at a pizza place downtown. It was a busy area, and we were literally around the corner from a direct competitor. They had a carryout window and offered that service all night. We did not and closed our doors at 10. We only offered delivery service after that. It's worth mentioning that we were quite friendly with the local cops, and they frequently sat in our parking lot at night to catch up on paperwork. It's a nice perk when your business is downtown. One time around 11:30 p.m., this woman and a man started banging on our door. I politely but loudly told them through the door we close carryout at 10. The woman goes ballistic on me. She starts yelling and hitting the door, while the guy just stands there watching and trying to look tough. I ask another employee to keep an eye on me in case the situation escalates. I stepped out another side door so I could actually talk to them. They weren't having it. This woman is absolutely nuclear at this point, screaming and cussing. I let her finish her tantrum and tell her that if she called and ordered, it was probably our friendly neighbors with the carryout window. She says, "Are you calling me stupid?" I asked her to check her phone and tell me which number she called. She says, "I don't have to. I know I called y'all and you took my order." At this point, I informed her that there is absolutely no way I took a carryout order after we closed carryout. Now the man joins in, taking a very aggressive posture and tone with me. He informs me I better let them in and get their food or else. I just flat out said no right in his face. The man shoves me and I stumble back about 3 feet. He goes to swing at me, misses, and I kindly repay the favor and connect, knocking him on the ground. At about the same time, the woman attempts to rush me. Suddenly, there's a siren and flashing lights behind them. That only made them more eager to pummel me. But the 2 cops who had just pulled in took care of that quite quickly. Then another squad car shows up. The couple are cuffed and placed in the cars. While I was talking to them, I couldn't help but ask the cops if, for the sake of curiosity, they could ask her what phone number she called to order pizza. He walks me back out to the car she's in and somehow convinces her to do this. She recites the number while glaring at me, with so much vitriol and hatred in her voice. She reads it aloud and called me an idiot. I smiled and just pointed up at the sign above me. "Our number is up there. We are Domino's." You read out the number for Papa John's. 7272 spells out Papa. Then the cops took her away. I kinda got the sense that was coming. It's always the most confident, arrogant people that end up making the biggest mistakes, and then they never want to admit it. Rather than just taking a second to look at their phone and realize they made a mistake, they decide to get physical and end up sitting in a jail cell instead. I used to work at Target. We were always told if a parent has their kid standing in the cart, we should ask the parent to have their kid sit down. Most of the time, the parents are fine with it. This one lady was not having it. She was outside and had just put her kid in the cart. At the entrance, the ground had shifted a bit and there was a small lip to get into the store. Of course, the kid is standing at the very front of the cart. I politely warned the customer of the lip and told her the kid should sit down because there's a very high chance he'll fall out. She tells me, "Go screw yourself. You can give me advice about my kid when you become a parent yourself," all while pointing her finger at me. Well, okay then. So she walks towards the door, kid still standing, and it hits the lip. The kid flips out of the cart and bashes his face on the floor. If anyone knows about the carpeting in the entrance of vestibules, it's basically like having a piece of paper draped over a slab of concrete. There's no padding whatsoever. The kid had a giant lump on his forehead and must have hit his nose too, since he was bleeding everywhere. I told my managers, and the lady got the help she needed for her kid. But she was still being extremely rude the entire time. I even considered telling the managers to call CPS, since she clearly ignored safety instructions. Unfortunately for this kid, karma does not discriminate. If their mom wasn't being such a jerk, this never would have happened. I don't know why you don't just listen to the advice the person's giving you. They're not doing this for their own benefit, it's for you. So if you follow the instructions, everyone would have been fine. Hopefully this mom thinks twice next time. I worked for a sushi bar for a long time. They do this half-price sushi hour most weekdays for dine-in customers. It brings in people who end up wanting to stay and have drinks or eat more. Plus, it's a good deal, especially for how good the food is. It was an especially busy day. People were waiting and milling around. This woman and her daughter come in all stressed because they are in a hurry. My daughter was cheerleading, and they want the half-price deal. It's a full house, first come, first serve. Of course, the woman gets mad when her food takes longer than 15 minutes. She asks if she can get her food to go, and I then explain that the food would be full priced. We get into an argument in the sense that she's getting angry and beginning to yell at me in front of her embarrassed daughter while I meekly stand there, unsure of what to do. Well, I ordered dine-in. You're asking for it to go. It doesn't matter if you were at a table when you asked, lady. She's getting louder and more annoying, and I'm starting to panic as my anxiety was really bad at the time. Suddenly, my boss chimes in. And by chimes in, I mean she started ripping this woman a new one. You see, my old boss just happened to be working behind the sushi bar that summer. She told the woman to stop yelling at me and that if she wanted her half-price sushi, she would have to sit and wait like everyone else. My boss apologized to the other customers and made sure I was okay. The lady was shocked and now super embarrassed, since the entire restaurant was now judging her. She quietly sat and waited for her sushi. The daughter apologized to me and that table ended up leaving a good tip. My old boss is the nicest woman in the world. She still gives me free food whenever I go up for some sushi. She also has a bunch of regulars who she always makes time for. But don't make her angry because she will become a scary, scary person in mere seconds. I really just feel bad for the daughter in this situation. I would be so embarrassed if my parents started going off at a poor customer service worker. I'm just really glad that the boss stepped in and helped the server out. This could have just gone on in an endless loop of frustration. I used to work at Radio Shack during college. It was never very busy on Sundays, so I was generally the only one there. On this particular Sunday morning, I was incredibly tired from the night before, so I was kind of annoyed about having to come in on a day when no one was going to show up. I got even more annoyed when I pulled into the parking lot and was greeted by a man who instantly started yelling at me. I put on my sales associate smile and kindly asked what the problem was. "I've been waiting here for 30 minutes and you are late." I wasn't late, I was actually 15 minutes early. He then followed closely behind me to the door and was screaming at me the whole way. "I'm never coming back to this store," and stuff like that. When I finally got the door open, I let him know that I had to turn the alarm off and count the register before I could help him. This also made him angry. But at this point, I didn't care. I was nice enough to try and help him 15 minutes before we opened. The least he could do was not be a jerk. Anyway, I finally get to help the guy out and he wants to know about batteries. Cool, easy. I proceeded to show him our batteries and their prices. He started screaming and yelling about how everything was outrageous and the prices were terrible, and apparently I had treated him like trash. He started to pound his fist on the counter and started yelling again about how we didn't have any name brand batteries. We did. And how Radio Shack was communist by trying to push their batteries on their customers. I calmly told him that there was nothing I could do and asked if I could help him with anything else. He stormed off, punched a battery display, and then came the karma. He proceeded to slam face first into our door. It turns out that since he was yelling and screaming at me while I was unlocking the doors, I forgot to unlock the other one. He quickly looked around to see if I had seen him. I just waved and told him to have a great day. He spun out of the parking lot and I never saw him again. The audacity of this man to berate this worker when he was clearly in the wrong. All he had to do is look at the sign on the front door of the store to see that he was too early. That must have been such a satisfying sight to see after dealing with him for all that time. I was patiently waiting for the young woman at a hotel reception desk to check me in when this woman suddenly stormed up behind me. In the most obnoxious voice I've ever heard come out of an adult's mouth, she started ranting about the kettle in her room, but I was not going to let that fly. After about 20 seconds of hearing about how her room only had a normal kettle, I told her to cut in and get in line. That is not what she wanted to hear. I've been traveling all day and this is what I get, a normal kettle. By this point, the girl behind the desk was near tears. I reminded her that this was an airport hotel. We'd all been traveling all day and she could get lost. But she just wouldn't quit. She started banging her fist on the desk like crazy and demanded to see a manager. She yelled so hard that she had a coughing fit. She coughed harder and harder and harder, and then a brown stain appeared on her khakis. Let's just say she didn't care so much about the kettle after that. I honestly don't know what she means by just the normal kettle. Are there some new type of kettles I don't know about? I guess I'm not a kettle expert here. But regardless, don't start yelling at the front desk. What are they going to do about it? If that's the kettles they have, that's what you're going to get. At least karma finally paid off in the end by completely embarrassing her in front of a group of people. I don't know what that stain was, but I don't like it. I worked for an online banking help desk and this 18-year-old boy phoned up saying he had seen a transaction for $7 to AllPay. And because he didn't recognize it, he decided the bank was robbing him for $7 and that I was in on it and I was a thieving little jerk. Then he gets his dad on the phone, who stuck up for his idiot son, saying I was pathetic for stealing off an 18-year-old boy, even though it was a debit card transaction, and I simply worked in the department that helped people use online banking. But anyway, I phoned our debit card services to see if they could give him any more information. And boy, could they. I then had the pleasure of getting back to this little brat's equally bratty father. I told him, "Hi sir, thanks for holding. I've checked with our debit card service team, and I now understand why your son would not have recognized the payee. All pay, that's a deliberately vague term used for discretion when the customer has subscribed to online adult videos." I continued saying, "That's what it was for. Your son has been paying for online videos of that nature. Would you like to pop him back on the phone so I can tell him it's a payment for this, or will you pass on the information?" The father just muttered that the issue did not require any further investigation, thanked me for looking into it, and hung up. Oh man, is that ever embarrassing for the kid. I would have loved to see the look on his face, and I'm sure it's something he will never forget. That's a core memory for this kid. That's our final story of rude customers getting what's coming to them. But check out the rest of our channel for more wild videos.